Tuesday Daily Delivery. I am Michael Rand. Glad to be back for another day, and I hope everyone out there is doing well. Great show coming up. Creed guitar player Mark Tremonti joins me here in just a few minutes. Creed on tour right now, playing in the Twin Cities, Treasure Island, in a few days here, Saturday the 17th. So had the opportunity to speak with him, thought, hey, this is a great opportunity. They have the big connection with the Vikings last year, where Higher took off as kind of the unofficial anthem of the Vikings for several weeks when they went on that winning streak. Just an interesting guy. Got into a lot of stuff with the band, some other stuff off the field, off the tour, stuff like that. So stick around for that. Hope you enjoy that conversation. Got a Jets holdout at the end of the show. Normally wouldn't just talk about another NFL team, but this is something pretty interesting with Hassan Reddick, who has not played a single down with the Jets, but wants a trade after being traded to the Jets just like 4 months ago. Hasn't played, like I said, hasn't even shown up at the facility except for his news conference and to get a physical, which, by the way, was on April Fool's Day, which makes all of this just even funnier. A young Twins pitcher expected to make his debut against the Royals. Nothing new, though, for them in the recent way they've been trending with their pitching staff. Get to that in a minute because he is supposed to start tonight. Second of 3 games against the Royals. Twins won 8-3 on Monday. That was the good news. What I missed, though, here's the bad news. Twins and Vikings both dealing with considerable, if not serious in the moment, injuries. File this under the can't have anything nice category that Minnesota sports fans are unfortunately all too familiar with. Byron Buxton had to leave that Twins game on Monday with what the team is calling hip discomfort. Sounds like he felt it during an at-bat, left the game. He'd been on a tear, had been really good this year, especially lately. Remember, he had those 2 home runs in the series finale, even though it was in a loss against Cleveland the other day. Hit a ball really hard early in the Royals win, an 8-3 Twins win. Pablo Lopez, really good start in that game. So the good news, again, was the Twins won 8-3, got a bunch of runs early, I think a 6-run second inning to kind of put themselves in control of that game. And like I said, a Pablo Lopez bounce back start after a rougher outing the last time out. But they're dealing now again with a Byron Buxton injury. Let's hear from manager Rocco Baldelli post game.
There's no real latest as far as me adding anything to the conversation. He came out of the game with some hip discomfort. We're going to treat it day to day. That's really all there is, and that's all we're going to know for now. And we're going to see how he feels over the next day or two, and we'll go from there. So we'll see. He's been swinging the bat great. He's looked great recently, so hopefully we get him back soon. Well, he looked fine early in the game. He had a rocket in the first at bat, and I think it was probably the first swing of the second at bat where he felt it. And he normally doesn't pull himself out of a game immediately, even when something is bothering him. So he stayed in for a little while, and then he made the decision. He knew he had to come out of the game.
And this is a shame. This is always a shame whenever Buxton has an injury, but I'm going to put the level of concern on this one considerably high, even though we don't know how serious it is. It could just be a day-to-day thing where he misses a couple games, it feels better, and all is well, and then we don't worry about this too much. But just given the fact that he could miss some time, knowing his injury history and already knowing where the Twins are with their injury situation. Royce Lewis finally back now, but he's been injured a couple times this season, so at least they have him in the lineup, but no Carlos Correa for the last month as he deals with that plantar fasciitis. Brooks Lee is ailing right now, so they're kind of down on their infield depth. Joe Ryan, of course, just went on the injured list in the starting staff. I'll get a little bit more to that in a bit as we talk about the Zebby Matthews promotion that I hinted at the beginning of the show. So a lot of guys banged up right now, injured. taking a toll on their lineup. And again, if you get the kind of inning you got on Monday, where you get a 3-run homer from Willie Castro, a 2-run shot from Royce Lewis, that will be fine, but you're not going to get that every day. You want to have as many quality hitters as possible in your lineup, and Byron Buxton has been rolling lately. So depending on how long this goes, they're already, like I said, down a lot of their best players. So that's why I put the level of concern on this fairly high. You can't just withstand a whole bunch of injuries, especially to your lineup, especially to the guys you're counting on to score runs and expect to keep winning. So Twins did win yesterday, 3-2 on this pretty important 7-game home stretch against the Guardians and the Royals. 2 more games here coming up Tuesday and Wednesday. I'll get to the pitching matchup tonight here in a minute, but the other part of the can't have anything nice portion of our program, J.J. McCarthy, after his really good preseason debut. Talked about that a lot on Monday's show with Andrew Kramer. I wrote about that Monday as well on StarTribune.com. You can still find that at StarTribune.com or in today's print edition of the Star Tribune. Threw an interception early, but 2 touchdown passes, poised, making a lot of tight window throws, decisive throws, aggressive throws, the kinds of things you want to see out of him in his progression. But now the progression will be stalled, at least temporarily. Maybe we'll get some good news today. They're saying they're going to update us today on how he's doing, because they've got those joint practices with the Cleveland Browns before they play the Browns in the preseason later on this week. So they've got some big, this is a big week of work for them. McCarthy with a knee injury, and it's like a knee soreness, we're calling it at this point. Probably an abundance of caution right now. Doesn't sound like it's anything serious, but when you come in and you've got knee soreness and you're just kind of talking about, hey, how does this feel? Can't play in the night practice, keeping him out, making sure you're being smart and testing things like that, does raise my antenna a little bit. So here's Kevin O'Connell talking about J.J. McCarthy on Monday.
J.J. McCarthy came in today with a little bit of right knee soreness. It was something, obviously he finished the game, threw a touchdown on his last pass, but out of precaution, we're going to, continue an evaluation on him and get some more testing done. Very important player, obviously, so we want to make sure we're smart about before he participates, making sure we have a good understanding of where he's at. Like I said, he was obviously finished, could have continued playing, kind of reached a good rep number there, right around 30 snaps that I kind of wanted to get for him, and obviously had a really positive performance. So we're trying to figure out maybe when it happened, but no, he just came in with some kind of routine soreness that a lot of guys after their first preseason game sometimes come in with, and it was something we want to be smart about.
Now, I'm not going to raise a high level of concern on this one. That does seem like, an abundance of caution type of situation, but, a knee is a little, finicky, could be a lot of little things going on there. And the bummer of this for McCarthy, for the Vikings, for Vikings fans, is that he was supposed to get a lot of work kind of ramping up this week, seeing some time with the first team. A lot of the players that, he's been taking a lot of second team reps. Sam Darnold getting the majority of the work with the first team, the presumptive starter, the veteran, things like that. This was going to be a week for him to maybe get some of that work. Not saying he was going to unseat Darnold right away, but this was going to be an important step in his evolution. If he can't do that, that will stall his progress a little bit, at least temporarily. It's nothing that's going to stall anything long term, but it will stall his progress temporarily, kind of take that down a notch. So something that bears watching this week, no doubt, because J.J. McCarthy is the future of this franchise, is the future of the quarterback position with the Vikings, even if he's not necessarily the present. So we will see what the updates on that are. I kind of, not mockingly, but, kind of just for the sake of levity, asked on X, formerly Twitter, who's going to be back first, McCarthy or Buxton? A lot of you said McCarthy, probably just based more on maybe the severity of the injury and Buxton's history. For the sake of Minnesota sports, for the sake of Minnesota sports fans, let's hope they are both back on the field relatively soon and healthy, because both teams are going to need both players. Maybe not immediately for the Vikings, but both of those guys are centerpieces of anything big either of these teams wants to get done in the future. One more thing before we get to my interview with Mark Tremonti of Creed. Twins call up Zebby Matthews. What a rise for Zebby Matthews. Started the year in Class A, Cedar Rapids. He's made a jump from there to AA Wichita, from there to AAA St. Paul, and now to the Twins. Hard thrower, strike thrower, doesn't walk a lot of guys. That kind of stuff will play well in the major leagues. Now, kind of remains to be seen, of course, like how he reacts to this kind of promotion. Again, wasn't thought of as one of their best prospects early on at the start of the year. Wasn't really given much of a look in spring training, it sounds like. But when you perform, when you do the things he's done, you earn that chance. Now, you might look at his raw numbers at St. Paul, ERA over 5 in 4 starts, and say, hey, well, why are they calling him up? Well, they need somebody, right? Joe Ryan's on the injured list. They're already their pitching depth was already fairly thin. Chris Paddock has been out for a while. They've been starting 2 rookies already in the rotation lately, in Simeon Woods Richardson and David Festa. Now you add a third in Zebby Matthews. So they need somebody. They need somebody to make this start. They had the doubleheader on Friday, so they're kind of in a pinch in terms of where they are with, lining up the rotation. But this is a big game for them. This is a big start for Zebby Matthews to come into against Kansas City, a team that's right on the Twins' heels, in the mix for the wild card, in the mix for the division. Twins got a little separation on Monday by winning that game, but still the Twins 3.5 behind the Guardians. Guardians won 9-8 over the Cubs on Monday. So it's a big spot, big start for him. This is a guy who could be a big part of the future. We hear that about people. The Twins have tried out, hopefully he's somebody who can be durable and healthy, things like that. They can use an injection of talent into this rotation again for the near term and for the far term. So Zebby Matthews tonight, Twins against Royals. We will see how his debut goes. So last year, at the height of Creed mania with the Vikings, I tried to get someone from Creed on the show. It just didn't quite work out with their schedules, things like that. But now they are playing Treasure Island Casino on Saturday in the Twin Cities area, Minneapolis, St. Paul area at the very least, and was able to secure Mark Tremonti, guitarist. Had a great conversation with him just a couple days ago, so let us listen to that now. All right, let's bring in Mark right now. Mark, how are you?
Doing well. Yourself? I'm
good. Understand you guys will be here, Treasure Island, Creed playing Treasure Island on the 17th, Saturday. It's got to be exciting, right? You guys on a big tour right now.
Yeah, this has been a crazy tour so far. We've tonight will be our 13th show out of 40 of this run, and it's been amazing.
So I'm gonna get into some Vikings questions with you, some sports questions in just a little bit. But I mean, you guys go back. Creed goes back, I want to say 30 years now, 1994. Like how? Since it's been that long, give me some of the origin story of Creed, if we can go back that far.
Yeah, me and Scott Stapp went to high school together in Orlando, Florida, at Lake Highland Prep School, and then I found my way to. First, I went to Clemson University, then Florida State, where I ran into Scott again when he was looking for a band. He came to visit my roommate and said he was in town and he was looking for a band. She's like, I'm with Mark Tremonti. We roomed together. So we started playing open mic nights and whatnot, and it was very successful right out of the gate. People loved the open mic nights. So we knew we had something going on, and we had to recruit bandmates throughout Tallahassee in our college years, and pilfered Brian from another band and found Scott Phillips at a party and started Creed. And we got our first record out in 1997 with My Own Prison, and it's been a crazy ride ever since.
How do you define the sound of Creed? I think people, say, hey, they're post grunge, or however you want to define it. I don't think you guys set out to be post grunge, but how would you just define what you guys are?
I'd say just classic rock influenced rock and roll. It's some melody and guitar driven kind of, and it's earnest. It's straightforward. It's just we try to make our songs not just sex, drugs, and rock and roll, but personal matters in songs, and here we are.
Yeah, it's a journey. I mean, just you guys have had different points along the way. The story of Creed is not unlike any band that's been together for 30 years or on and off for 30 years. You have your moments, your dips, your lows. What keeps you going 30 years from now, especially after taking some breaks and stuff like that?
Seeing the way these songs have affected people over the 25 plus years that they've been out there. When you see people who haven't heard it or maybe even never heard it, they've heard it, they grew up with it with their parents, or they've just seen it online. When they finally get to see it live after all these years, you see people tear up. You see grown men and women crying, and you see mothers and daughters and fathers and sons coming to the shows. We see such a wide variety of people enjoying the music. It's just the music becomes bigger than us. It's we know we wrote the songs and we performed it, but it's become much more important to kind of pop culture in people's lives than we are. So it's good to see how these songs have become these evergreen tunes.
There was a pop culture moment in Vikings land last year. Kirk Cousins, former quarterback for the Vikings, starts playing Creed. They're on a losing streak at that point. They go on a winning streak. Higher becomes like the unofficial theme song of the Vikings, at least for a good part of the season last year. How aware were you guys of that, and what did you think of that?
We were very aware of it, and
you could not be at there's a certain point, I suppose.
Yeah, and Kirk Cousins, such a classy gentleman, and him playing our music was an honor for us. And then it was such a horrible. Me and my kids were all watching every single game, and when he got injured, we were just heartbroken. We hope to get back into the Vikings playlist. My producer that I use and my drummer are massive Viking fans. So whenever there's a game on, it's on the TV while we're recording records. They're always wearing Vikings gear. My kids are big fans. I'm much more in tune with sports in general now that I've had teenage kids, because they're constantly talking about it. So I love it.
And you had, I think, the Texas Rangers too latched on to Higher. They played it. I was like, when they would visit the White House, they were playing that. I think Biden walked in and Higher's playing stuff like that. It's like, it's just got to be kind of like surreal for moments like that.
It is surreal. I just somebody just sent me that video of Biden making a speech about the Rangers coming in and saying how Creed is their favorite band, and I'm like, oh my God, the president just said the name of the band. It's very surreal, and we love that the Rangers used the song. It was, I had a lot of panic attacks along the way when they were thinking, I thought they were going to lose a game. Like, no, come on, right. Rangers. But for them to get through the whole season, win the whole thing, playing that music as kind of their hype music, it blew us away. It was a lot. It was very exciting. I don't think I've been that excited about baseball since 1984 with the Tigers.
Okay, yeah.
When I was in Detroit, but it made a lot of fun watching this season.
So Tigers, that goes back to your roots, your childhood.
I grew up in Detroit, and I lived in Detroit for the '84 Tigers World Series, and then I moved to Chicago for the '85 Bears.
That's pretty good. So, that's a good run.
2 epic runs, and then I stayed in Chicago for the Michael Jordan era, Bulls, Rodman, Jordan, Pippen, Kukoc, like the dynasty. So I got to live in some very awesome sports city.
Well, I was going to say too, like if you were at Florida State in like the early 90s, I mean, I don't know what I want to talk about the music scene too, but like the football team was like, that was the heyday of the Bobby Bowden era.
Oh yeah. Bowden was there, and you had, was it Charlie Ward, quarterback? But I went to Clemson my freshman year, and Florida State came in and killed us.
Yes, I would think they did at that point. Yeah, they've gotten a little bit better since then at football. But What's Florida like? What's the kind of incubator we hear about? This, I guess kind of a cliche at this point, but like, Seattle is synonymous with the grunge scene. You've got different areas that are kind of synonymous with music. What's the music scene in Florida that spawns Creed?
I don't think it necessarily was Florida. It was all of our different influences. I'm a heavy metal guy since I was a kid, so I brought the heavy metal to the band, and then Scott was more of a, I don't even think he was allowed to listen to a lot of rock and roll when he was a kid. His parents were very religious and very strict, I believe. So I think one of the only things he could get away with listening to was like Elvis and stuff like that. But then moves out of the house. I think he got into Jim Morrison and the Doors and brought those kind of influences, which is great because those two guys are big, larger than life frontmen. I think that's what he is. He's a very big personality in the band, and Brian Marshall brings in his Rush and Iron Maiden and classic rock, and then Scott Phillips is a Living Color guy, classic rock, and we all kind of come together and create this stew.
How heavy of the heavy metal? What bands were you listening to back then? Because I was a heavy metal kid too, so I want to know what you're listening to.
As heavy as I could get, Of course. One of my first heavy bands was Slayer, Slayer, favorite record for manner of years. And then Metallica, of course, Master of Puppets is probably my favorite record of all time. Celtic Frost is another one of my favorite bands. Bad Brains, a little on the punk side, Bad Brains and Black Flag, Exodus, Testament, Forbidden, Laz Rocket, all kinds of stuff. Obituary.
You're able to bring that influence into Creed, but you also have other projects too, where you maybe get to explore a little bit more of that side.
Well, you're not going to hear a lot of metal in Creed, but it's, I like to get away with as much heaviness as I can without ruining the recipe, So that's why I started the band Tremonti, where I can throw a little of the heavier guitar work in there. I'm still not doing metal vocals by any means, but I get to get a little heavier as far as the music goes.
What is the recipe for what's the game-winning recipe for a Creed song?
Big melodies. Any band, I think melodies are the most important part. In Creed, especially lyrics are very important. To me, it's either the most triumphant thing in the world or the saddest thing in the world. Nothing in between.
You've played the songs, I don't know, countless times at this point. Do you still love playing the songs? Are there some songs that you just don't want to play anymore? No,
I think they're all, the set we have going right now, there's not a song I don't enjoy playing. I don't think, we still have yet to play half the songs we have on our records live on this tour. So we've only done about a dozen shows, but everything we're playing now, I love it.
Couple more things. Love this conversation. Minnesota, I'm sure you've played here a bunch. You're playing Treasure Island, like we said, on the 17th. Anything particular about Minnesota, aside from the Vikings, stand out from any trips you've had here before?
I mean, I've just been there so many times, and just the whole area. It just reminds me of home, because it's not too far from where I grew up, and the rock scene is so nice there. I love nature up there. I love change of seasons. So if I'm ever there, I'm walking around, taking it all in. I understand too. You are a big pinball enthusiast. How big of a pinball enthusiast are we talking about? The biggest. I've been collecting pinball machines since I could afford to buy one back in maybe 1998 or 99. I bought my first pinball machine. Ever since then, I've been hooked, and I always have about 15 machines that I always trade and buy and sell. And it's getting crazy because the machines are starting to come into my studio, and now I've got a game room with all my pinballs. Now my studio's full of pinballs. I got to do soundtracks for 2 new pinball machines that came out this year. I did the soundtrack for Stern's Venom machine, and I also did music for the Godfather machine by Jersey Jack. Pinball. That's gonna be fun. Jeez. I'm trying to infiltrate the pinball world as much as I can. You got to play the pinball. Do you have a favorite game? A top 5? my favorite game ever would have to be Medieval Madness.
Okay.
But currently, my favorite games, I think one of the most impressive machines I've ever played is the new Elton John machine by Jersey Jack Pinball. It's absolutely.
I haven't played that. Yeah, haven't played it.
It's incredible. Stern-wise, my favorite machine right now is the anniversary model of the James Bond, the new James. I think it's like the 60th anniversary James Bond, I believe. But no ramps, not a lot of bells and whistles, but just a lot of fun to play.
You ever play? This is my favorite game. You ever play a game called Cyclone?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That's my favorite. That's up there for me. That's from my childhood, but I love a good Cyclone.
I've pretty much played every pinball machine, other than the very newest Stern machine. I haven't found that yet. I haven't found that in an arcade yet. The John Wick machine. You'll
have to try the Minneapolis. Minneapolis has a pinball bar now. You have to check it out when you're here.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. Mark, appreciate it. Have a great show Saturday the 17th at Treasure Island. Hope we catch up again down the road.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate it.
Watch your dreams and savings grow with Royal Credit Union's 4.25% annual percentage yield 12-month certificate. Open now at any Royal office or online at rcu.org/certificate saver. Early withdrawal penalties could reduce earnings and principal. APY accurate as of 2/1/25. Insured by NCUA.
Hope you enjoyed that conversation with Mark Tremonti from Creed. I didn't know a ton about him before the interview. Obviously, did a lot of interview prep. Really like talking to him. He just seems like a good guy, a lot of varied interests, has lived an interesting life, and what a charmed sports life he was talking about, right? Going from the 84 Tigers to the 85 Bears, and then we talked about, his Florida State, how good they were at football when he was there. A charmed sports life that seems to has continued even as a member of Creed, with the Vikings going on a run last year when they were playing that song, and of course the Texas Rangers riding that song to a World Series title. Let's finish today with the cooler. Like I said, I don't talk a whole lot of Jets football unless it's Aaron Rodgers, of course. But this story caught my eye. Hassan Reddick, acquired by the Jets a few months ago in a trade with the Eagles. I believe it was a conditional third-round pick. Reddick wasn't happy with his contract at the time of the trade. Jets acquire him. They don't work out a contract extension at the time. Reddick comes in for like 1 day, comes in for the news conference, and comes in for his physical, passes the physical. Hasn't been in the Jets facility since then, though, holding out for a contract. A guy who got traded, hasn't played a single down for his new team yet, wants his deal ripped up, renegotiated because he's on the last year of a deal. He feels like he's underpaid. Probably is in the grand scheme of things. Guys who have produced roughly to the same effect as he has as a pass rusher. He's got about the same amount of sacks as like a Daniil Hunter, who's making a lot more than he is. Things like that. But just the irony of the Jets trading for a guy. He's racked up more than $1 million in fines because of not reporting to training camp and missing other milestones along the way. And now here we are. August 13th, he formally requested a trade from the Jets on Monday. The Jets saying no. A strongly worded statement. It says, "We have informed Hassan that we will not trade him, that he's expected to be here with his teammates, and that he will continue to be fined per the CBA if he does not report." That was from General Manager Joe Douglas in a statement. Since the trade discussions back in March, we have been clear, direct, and consistent with our position. Our focus will remain on the guys we have as we prepare for the regular season. Now, the irony of this is basically the Jets say they won't negotiate with a player who isn't in camp, and Hassan Reddick says he won't come to camp unless he has a new deal. So something's got to give here. Something philosophically has to change, because this is a chicken and the egg thing at a certain point. Like, one of these things can't happen without the other. And one side is saying you got to come to camp to get a new contract, and he's saying I won't come to camp unless I have a new contract. So just a kind of a funny, not funny, but just like a bizarro kind of sports story, maybe a palate cleanser. This has nothing to do with Minnesota sports. Maybe you're bummed about McCarthy, bummed about Buxton. Again, maybe those aren't too serious and you're happy again in a few days, things like that, hopefully. But, right now, maybe a little palate cleanser from the rough news of what went on what we learned on Monday about Buxton and McCarthy. That will do it for me today. Jeff Day from the Star Tribune, hoping to have him on Wednesday's show. He has moved over to the news side of the Star Tribune. He's covering all sorts of interesting stuff, including a story about a giant house and a big garage in the West Metro area involving former Vikings player Chad Greenway. I read it on Monday and said I got to have Jeff on the show to talk about it, so hopefully that will be on Wednesday's show. Probably just a little bit of a guise, too. I want to get him on to talk about Timberwolves basketball. We always end up talking about the Wolves. Jeff's a huge Wolves fan. Haven't talked much Wolves lately, so I bet Jeff and I will get into some Wolves discussion as well, even though we are in the heart of the offseason. Until then, I am Michael Rand. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Back at it again tomorrow.